Guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Uh, it's obviously been filled up with a lot more people besides for me, but I'm hoping to reclaim some real estate on it by adding some more videos to the Halo PSA implementation playlist. It's been a while since I've put anything on it, and I feel like it's time to continue. I think the last time was almost a year ago. Um, so we're going through our Halo implementation project, right? Like basically the same exact steps I go through with my clients as we do an implementation. And we're following more or less the same basic project plan that I use with my clients with each of these videos. The last area that we left off with, we talked about contracts, we talked about the billing plan combinations, and we talked about the recurring invoices. Um, like I said, it's been a while, so I may forget some of the things that I said on the video, or may forget some of the things that we've had in our instance, but we are going to jump right into the next step that we like to talk about, which is going to be the ticketing area. So we talk about like the email setup and configuration, we talk about calendar integrations a little bit, and then it's basically leading us up to the actual ticketing setup and discussion about around Halo. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's see what we can get through at this point. This is our Rising Tide training, HaloPSA.com. It's been quite a while since I've been inside of this instance, and so we'll see where things go. There are some differences that have come up since we last touched this. First of all, like we are on essentially the trial cluster, so we are running a beta version of Halo. I say like that a little weird or hesitantly because technically speaking, we're not on the latest beta. We are on 2.184.7. Currently, 2.184.23 is the active current release candidate. If you remember from, I think, last video or 2 videos ago, I actually was talking about the candidate at the time, which was 2.174. And so we're kind of like in the middle here. It's about 10 versions later. We are again talking about the release candidate, and there are a ton of new functionality and features that are coming through on these 10 versions. So I highly encourage you to check out the release notes if you haven't already. There's a ton of information to read. I'm just going to go through like a quick one or two of them just to highlight some of the like significant changes that have happened. So under configuration advanced settings, we're going to jump down and we're going to say show KB guide links against each setting when available. And notice what's going to end up happening is we're going to have URL icons that'll allow you to basically click on it, and it will take you to a guide around that feature. Significant improvements to what used to be like, or where you're basically struggling to find information around the Halo setting. These guides will hopefully help you. There is a small caveat. Halo's website has moved to a brand new domain, usehalo.com/HaloPSA. The problem that they haven't yet implemented proper redirects from the guides to the new website. And so what I would do is, even though you'll get this message, just close it out, and then you can read the actual guide itself. If you did click on that prompt, for example, it'll take you to just the main website without taking you to the guide. So a little bit of a problem there. Typical Halo fashion. Not everything's going to work exactly the way we intend to right out of the box, but it is still usable if you go ahead and turn that on. The other thing I want to point out is there is, I think, a beta. Perfect. Yeah, so you'll see this beta tag around things that are still in testing, even though it's in your stable version. It's actually covered by that wrench, which is kind of funny. But there's this beta tag that'll exist that will inform you that a setting you're looking at doing is not yet ready for production or hasn't been fully tested for production at this point. And so you'll notice you've got a beta tag here. You've got a beta tag. Well, here actually I don't think is beta anymore. We can move this to S3 if it'll let you. And then I think the trials won't actually let you do that. Let me just double check if that worked real quick. Oh, yeah, there we go. Image store location is now Amazon S3. It's going to load images via the API. And then we can do the same thing here for S3. And then we can turn on client-side uploads, and so on and so forth. But again, like these are beta settings that I'm changing. And so I would not necessarily recommend you turn that on in production. Some differences will happen, like your PDF documents and things like that will get stored in S3, and then some of the way it expands will be a little bit different than what you're used to. We can use a new search method. We can enable full text searching on the opening node of a ticket, enable full text searching on all action notes. Again, certain things that may or may not improve or not improve, it might make it worse. Your experience of searching throughout Halo, some of the things to look out for. Again, the point is to look at the wrench and see what those explanations are. There's one other thing that I'm going to point out. Those searching settings, not all of them are new, but the real big change that you should know is coming is the Halo UI style. You may or may not have seen this in the release notes. If you change the Halo style from 2021 to Halo 2025, again, it will be beta. Notice the entire page reloaded. And so things look a little bit different. Let me just refresh this one more time. Okay, so now that we've done this, we can now decide what we want to do with this tree menu display. It kind of looks the same as it did before, but I can actually show it as a widget. And what's going to end up happening is upon refresh, it is now separate from the actual bar. It is its own independent widget. The breadcrumb is now put up here. We've got a little bit better use of the real estate. There's some other things that we can do now. We can say if we want to choose um, the difference between like the different which side the checkboxes are on. You can do that based off of selecting like the bulk when you're inside of a table, like bulk selecting items. And then of course, Halo is famous on the dashboarding widgets pop up on hover. I don't know why you'd ever want that, but if you turn that on, notice the entire screen pops out at you to highlight where you are in that. And that gets more and more annoying as you go throughout the system. I like keeping that off. The other thing that we can do is we can turn on additional world clocks. And so these world clocks will basically allow you to specify, you know, up to 6 clocks that you can use that'll be displayed on tickets. Again, I'm kind of going off of the normal tangent. This is not really part of the Halo setup. It's just some interesting new things that potentially you want to turn on. And so like we're going to set up for Australia, for New Zealand, and then of course for London. And then we can specify what the clock labels will be. And you can, like I said, you can go up to 6, technically speaking. And then we've got essentially on a ticket screen, if I go pull up a ticket, what'll happen is on the side of that ticket, we will now have displayed, if the ticket ever loads, come on. Did mention it's been a while since I was inside this Halo. Let's take a look at a different ticket and see what happens. There we go. All right, so this ticket showed up. We don't have the clocks showing, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Here we don't have the clocks showing either. I wonder why this ticket took so long. But what we can now do is inside the ticket type, we can go to the forms section, I believe, and then we can go to the agent ticket details form and we can choose what widget to show on the clock. So on the side of the ticket. So we can say like world clocks is widget 1, and then the SLA information is widget 2. We can change the sidebar content to be like Microsoft Teams chat or progress or whatever. And then we can say how many columns or what's the maximum number of sidebar columns that we want to display. You can go up to 1 or 2, and that's literally just having these 2 columns on the side. We can limit that. If I go ahead and refresh this, let's see if it still takes a while to load. Nope. And then notice now we've got here the world clocks. Up here we've got the SLA, and so on and so forth. We can swap that around if we want to, and whatnot, right? And then if we go back and refresh this, we can see, again, we've got the world clocks that'll show up. And then we can just change ticket type if we want to and say like we don't want to show anything in widget 2. So we can say no, none for that, save this, and then refresh the screen. And then we can see that we've got the clock showed up here. There was some missing, there's some differences, I think. I don't know what the SLA information differences are. But I think if you just move them around, like let's see, we turn this to world clocks and set this to SLA information, for example, and save. We should be able to see these 2 positions swap. There we go. Like here's the SLA information and that's world clock. So I think if you don't show anything, the SLA information does pop up if you don't have it anywhere else. We could also say, you know, don't show anything on ticket on widget 2. And I actually don't know how that's going to look. But the point is like, there you go. There's the SLA information over here and then ticket information here. So you have like more room on the side. You have less to scroll if you want to do that way. And that's basically it as far as new features. There's a lot more there, but I'm going to stop at this time because that's not what this video is intended for. What we want to talk about is the integrations for email setup. So we haven't really done this yet, I don't think. Well, I think we did the mailbox setup. Let me just double check. I think we did the mailbox setup as part of the Microsoft yeah, as part of the Microsoft integration, we did the mailbox setup. There's a couple of differences that we'll talk about really fast regarding how it's done now. Um, the credentials are different. One of the things that are common to occur, so in Halo, one of the things you can do is with the company will do for you is they'll give you like a demo environment or a UAT instance or something like that that you can continue to bug test new versions for your processes. You can develop in that UAT instance as you make improvements and make sure that things are still working the way you need it to in your process before it gets pushed to production. And oftentimes it's fairly common for you to refresh the UAT instance with the latest changes from production. So you get some production data into that UAT instance and you can really test and play with it. Um, the problem happens when you do that is that all the integrations are still connected. You're copying from the production to the UAT, and you essentially have two databases with the exact same configuration for your integrations and so on. But now email is being processed by two instances, and so on and so forth. Um, so the thing that we want to do, or the things that they've done, is they've actually started building out a differentiation between what instance your mailbox is connected to. And so you can create a new one, and you can define whether or not that instance is going to be, if whether or not this is going to be used in your production instance, or whether it's going to be used um, in your UAT instance. And you do that by basically creating a new set of credentials in that instance. So this mailbox itself will be moved across to your UAT instance, and then you can go to credentials in your UAT instance and create a new set of credentials, which will then be used, or you can say like it'll only be used for production, and therefore it won't work in the UAT instance or anything like that. All right, so that's something that you can do now, and then there are a few other things that have been coming in regards to like automations and webhooks that'll allow you to define like which instance. I think it's, for example, let's look at webhooks real quick. I think when you're doing a webhook here, we can choose like what instance um, you want it to run in, for example, or something like that. I don't remember where it is. Um, or I could be making that up, or it could be it's not yet in this version. Was it under runbooks maybe? It can only start through Halo. And then I guess, I don't know, I guess I'm making it up, but I remember seeing something like that. Um, yeah. Any case, um, there's some additional changes to runbooks that we'll talk about at some point when we not as part of this video. All right, so moving on, we've got our email configured. We talked a bit about the email configuration settings here, so that was a little bit out of order, which is fine. We'll just skip through that. I don't remember if we talked about message groups and email templates. We do have the backup, so we must have talked about message groups at some point. So assuming we also talked about the email templates at that point. Um, we don't have any custom templates, so we'll talk about that in a moment. And then the last thing, after we go through our email settings, um, let's see. This setting is available if we want to. Yeah, we definitely talked about this. Some of these things have been changed. Show only email tickets client. Okay, cool. Do you want to add auto response to press email header? So this is a basic, this is a new feature or a new setting that's been added in. Um, enable email threading for outgoing email actions. So this is only available for 365 Azure mailboxes, where the emails will thread correctly. And do you want to include system actions and email threading, right? Let's see. Uh, let's go from there to up here. We have some additional settings as well. Emails from co-managed agents are treated as users. That's a new setting, right? That we want to probably want to turn on. Um, treat emails as auto-submitted reply header as automatic replies. Treat emails as auto-submitted, auto-generated as automatic replies. That way, auto replies do not update the status of the ticket. Um, and then enable AI thank you email detection. We want that on. We talked about that already previously. So this will expand the same like right now, if two people email Halo, let's say if I'm emailing support and I CC my partner and then she responds back to that email instead of the email from the ticketing system, it'll recognize it's the same email chain because she was on my email to Halo and the subject line is the same. It's like it matches the recipients in the subject line. In this case, um, right, so that's this setting up here. It'll basically keep it all as part of the same ticket. In this case, now it'll also match the in reply to header. So again, in reply to is like the threading header from Microsoft 365. It knows it's the same thread, and so then takes that email and puts it into the same ticket at that point. So potentially you will likely want that on. Um, and then that's basically it that we'll talk about. There's a new setting inside the mailbox that I recommend turning on itself under incoming. We want to come here and we probably want to ignore emails where the mailbox is a CC recipient. No, not that one. Don't process emails sent from this mailbox to this mailbox. This setting here we want to turn on probably. Right, that's the one that we want. Other than that, let's go ahead and save this. We've got some outgoing settings, not much changed here. We've got the inbound outbound log. We also have the ability to import contacts from the mailbox. So like if you're connecting to a mailbox, you can import the contacts from the mailbox and match them to users essentially. And the new users will be matched to the correct site based off the site domain matching. So that's an interesting functionality that's been added in. That you can utilize if you have like a support mailbox that you've been using for support. You don't really have a ticketing system and all of your contacts for your clients are in that mailbox. You can import those. All right, let's move on from email. We talked about email in a past video. Hopefully you remember it. Let's go to the next thing that we like to talk about, which is notifications basically. So inside notifications here, we've got three settings, notification settings, which are essentially rules that happen. So in Halo, a notification other than a built-in event is basically going to be configured via a rule that you have agents subscribe to, or a fixed rule that's always going to notify the same agent or the same person. So we'll talk more about this in a moment. First, I want to talk about general settings. We generally recommend, at least to start, to turn almost every single setting on. And you can go through, if you have any questions, again, most of the time you have the wrench to explain it. But for the most part, we want to turn on almost every setting. Some of these things we don't want to turn on. We probably don't want to turn this on. This looks like a new setting. We want this on. We don't want to include API agents from owner updated notifications. We do want to send follower emails, so we're going to leave that alone. We probably want to send followers agent notifications. So it'll treat like agents who are followers as if they're assigned agents, basically. We want to allow agents to be mentioned in both serum and action notes, and we want to include teams and mentions. Probably it's up to you again. Include additional agents and assigned recipients. So this is being able to say, I don't want to use followers for additional agents. I want to use like an additional agent field, which exists in Halo to add more than one agent to a ticket, and they should be treated as if they're a regular agent at that point. Enable completion status for notifications. This is a new functionality-ish that we can basically say if there was a notification, I'll show you what it looks like. Maybe we'll get one later. But it basically allows you to treat it like a to-do list so that you can keep it open and mark it complete or incomplete at that point. It's just a neat new functionality that you may or may not find useful. And then the event log is very useful. It's only available for admins to see anyways on the ticket. But we do want to see that essentially in every entity that has an event. We want to be able to track down what happened when we need to. So I'm a tech, I like having diagnostics available to me within reach. So that's most of the settings we turn on usually. And again, this is tweakable according to your preference. The next thing we usually talk about is notification templates. And what I usually tell people, like our clients, I tell them to read this screen. I want them to like see and realize what these different things are. These are basically events. We have a new request logged. We have a new request log at party one, new request log out of hours, new request log qualified, right? And so these are all these different events that can occur within Halo. And basically what happens is when you open up one of these things, you can see what the message is going to be. And we usually recommend changing these messages for the most part. Like this by itself does not help me. I want to know like new seriousness, new priority, new critical, new low request, whatever. Um, has been logged for client under, I want to know who it was for. And then we have the ticket number, right? Sometimes we want to know the subject line, right? This is going to be completely up to you, but the point of a notification is to tell you that something happened, and it's to get you to take action, right? One of the things that happens is like a buzzword of sorts floating through our industry for the last couple of years, for probably almost the last decade, called alert fatigue, and we want to prevent that. So that means that when we get an alert, the alert should be useful to us. If it's not a useful alert, it's just noise. I don't care if a new request is logged. I care that it's a critical request logged by somebody I need to take care of, and I need to know whether or not I need to jump on it right now. In order for me to do that, I need to validate the priority of the ticket. I need to know who it was that created the ticket, and I need to know what the ticket's about. I don't care that a new ticket was logged about a printer that's needed next week. I do care if a new ticket was logged about a bad password or a compromised account or something like that that's getting in the way, right? And so we going through and adjusting these notifications that are happening to ensure that it's a useful notification. We've got the same problem that exists under request updated by user, for example. This is not correct because what's going to end up happening is it's going to tell you the ticket number for this client has been updated and it's been updated by who. This is the assigned user of the ticket, not the actual person who did the update. And so we always recommend changing this from $username to action who, which is going to be the person who actually did that update. And then potentially, again, going back to the idea of having some useful information, we want to know what the subject line is at that point, and we potentially want to know the priority. Where am I getting these variables from, right? That's a good question that's going to come up. Well, if you remember our email video, assuming we had talked about the email templates, inside the email templates itself, we will be able to pull up the list of variables that exists. So by hitting edit, we get all sorts of subtext, which is why I always encourage pressing edit as much as possible. Here we've got emails created from this template will have the following subject and body. Here's you can insert dollar variables into either of these fields, and there's a link. If you click here, you get the variables. This is another change that happened in the latest last couple of versions or so, is that now we have a type dropdown. We get to see all variables across the board throughout the platform. Previously, there were some pages that were hidden. You didn't know where you were looking at. At this point, now you can see all of them. And we can actually look to see, we want to like seriousness. We want the priority description. So we actually want seriousness 2. And then we can also see like symptom is going to be the summary of the ticket. Symptom 2 is the details of the ticket. Symptom 2 plain is the plain text. Here was a before template, right? So you can kind of see what's going on. The parent symptom 2 is if it's a child ticket, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that you can do, a lot of variables that you can utilize here. And if you look at tickets, you can kind of see like all of the available variables for tickets that's available to use within a ticket. And most of these can be done inside that notification rule or inside the email template, and so on and so forth. So going back to our notification rule, we want to update our new request log to say seriousness 2. New critical priority request has been logged, or whatever. You can adjust this sentence however you want under username with subject of symptom ID fault ID, right? And then I think that was basically the only ones that we had really changed. The key is, again, going back to the point of reading all of these things so you get an understanding and idea of what these event triggers are. The reason why I want you to do that is because when we go back to the next step, which is essentially creating a rule to utilize these notifications, is you come in here and we click new. For the most part, we'll talk about the agent notification primarily. We can talk about the rest as well in some cases, but for right now, we'll talk about agent notification as the most common use case. And we can say something like new ticket created, right? And so like if there's a manager or somebody who's going to get every new ticket created notification, we want to create a rule for that to happen. So upon a new ticket being created, we're going to notify an agent. Anybody can sign up to this rule. We're not going to restrict it by anybody. The default delivery method, so this is going to be interesting. We are able to basically say how we want to show this up. These two are irrelevant. We don't want to use these for a legacy application, which is no longer around. You shouldn't be using. You could send an SMS text message if your SMS is set up, or we can send it an email if we want to do that instead. We could also show in Halo only. In this case, I'm going to send it as an email. I can still choose to have it show up in the notification pop-up pane, which is going to be over here. So I'm going to keep that active. And then on top of that, I can even sign up to browser push notification. Notice this is beta, right? So we can turn this on and it will send a browser notification using Firebase, if your browser supports it, telling you that notification has happened, that event has happened. And then if we want to send a push notification, we can. This is not the most reliable because this is going to be dependent on the push servers and how Apple and Android actually get to the app and so on and so forth. But the fun thing is that I like to do for these is set a custom color. And so like we can identify this is something that requires like a attention, but not like critical attention. We'll make it a nice, neutral color or something like that so that it stands out in your view. Versus something that would need like more attention or more explicit attention, then you can basically make it a more attention-grabbing color. By having different notifications, different colors, it also assists with alert fatigue because you know like which ones need to be handled right away and which ones you can skip over and come back to at a later point. So just something to keep in mind. Remember all those notification rules or templates I kept telling you to read over and over again? So the reason why is because of this. And this is the trigger as to when a notification is going to fire. And these will line up directly and together with every single template you just saw. These are events that happen. Halo is very much an event-triggered application. So there are things that run on a schedule, but most things will be event. You create a ticket, and so then something happens. You update a ticket, and now an automation is firing. Um, if you have a rule, the rule is going to trigger after an update on the ticket. If there's a notification, the notification is triggering because something happened to that ticket, and which is then causing the next thing to happen. So in this case, this is a new request, new ticket created, and we're going to say if a new ticket is created. Now notice we've got 4 different options here, right? So if I'm the manager, I don't really care if it's being created and assigned to another person because they're just going to work on it, and that's fine. Like I can just manage their ticket queue in my normal managing processes, and I'm good. But if I'm the manager and a ticket comes through and it's unassigned, I don't know, or not that I don't know. I know that there's nobody responsible for working on that. It is now unassigned, and my responsibility is to go give that ticket out. So I really care about the unassigned tickets. If I'm a micromanager, I can say I want to know about all tickets. If I'm the manager of the whole company, if it's just a specific team that I'm managing and I'm a micromanager of, I can say if it comes to my team, I want to know about it regardless of who gets it, right? These values will only exist because of the fact that I'm choosing an agent notification, right? And so therefore I can say who's the recipient. It's going to be the person who's in the team, or it's going to be the person assigned to the ticket, or I'm going to get notified for every single ticket or all unassigned tickets. And then those last 2, it's going to be the person who's subscribed to the notification. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I'm going to choose new P1 ticket logged. I'm actually going to choose new ticket logged unassigned. And so I'm going to get notified on every single ticket that gets created that's unassigned. And then if I wanted to, I can add additional criteria and say like only if the team is equal to, first line support, or only if it's out of hours. And so we can say if it's not within working hours, right? Of our default working hours for the time zone of Eastern time. Then go ahead and notify me. So I'm going to get notified only of new tickets logged out of hours or something like that. You can build additional criteria. And the key is like any field on the ticket. And I know we haven't really talked about that yet. We will get to it when you start talking about tickets for real. But any field on the ticket can be utilized as a filter to basically narrow down which tickets you're going to get notified about when something happens. And then the last and important thing, which is the reason why we talk about email templates first and then notifications, is because they basically go hand in hand. When you are sending an email, it's going to ask you what template do you want to use. There is a template out of the box called Technician Update, which will work for the most part. It is a fairly generic template and with enough variables that will tell you enough information that you need to know, regardless of what that event is, right? So like notice we've got a dollar activity is a variable, and that dollar activity is going to be essentially what happened on the ticket, right? So if I can, actually, I don't even know if let's look at all. It's not even here. Well, dollar activity is going to be like what that event was, right? What happened on an action was updated, client owner notification, or something like that, where it's going to tell you what happened. And so it's generic enough that you can use this template everywhere. And Halo makes very liberal use of this template. So any generic internal update to the technician or to a client owner or account manager is going to use this template. It's not the greatest because as a technician getting this, unless I'm very familiar with what the template looks like and what the ticket is, it is very confusing to know what it is I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know if I was reassigned to the ticket. I don't know if it's a brand new ticket. I don't know if the ticket was escalated. I don't know what's going on necessarily, or if it was updated by a user. And so what I like to do is I like to create a brand new custom template for each of these things. And so we can say something like ticket, new unassigned ticket logged. Ooh, logged. And then I can specify my subject line however I want, and I can specify my email body, which is going to be something like, please note a new ticket has been created that is unassigned. Please review and process the ticket accordingly. Right, this is a very explicit notification. I get this, there's no doubt in my mind what has to happen. And then I can go ahead and put in all the details of the ticket if I want to. From even the previous template, I can just go back to that technician template and grab that technician updated template, grab the table if I want to, because it has most, if not all, the data that I want. And I can just essentially copy this and then go back out to here and then just paste it at the bottom. And now I've got the details of that ticket, and I can pull this out if I want to. And so then I basically have this, and then I can go back and grab the subject line if I want. Although it's not the greatest subject line, honestly, I prefer to pull this out because this should match the email start tag here. And so the reason why this is like this is because there are different things inside of Halo that will fire off this notification. And sometimes it'll include the ticket tag for you, and sometimes it will not. And so what I like to do is, because we can't control what fires off the template, it will be completely automatic, and you can't control whether or not that variable is included, really. So I like to be consistent, because sometimes you'll get the email template and it'll have more than one variable inside of it, or more than one ticket tag inside of it, and it will be problematic. So instead, what I do is I specify a hard code. You don't need to do this for any other template. If you look at the other templates, none of them have the ticket tag inside of them. I like to hard code the ticket tag according to your email settings here. And then what I do at the end is I put the $no tag, which will prevent the automatic ticket tag from being added in at that point. And so therefore, this will be a consistent use of the subject line over and over again. So this is one of the updates I do recommend doing to the email template, the technician update email template. And then going back here, we can basically utilize a similar subject line where we're going to say something like, new ticket, new unassigned ticket. And then we can say something like area, $username, symptom, right? So that they know what the ticket is for. And then we can leave this alone, so it'll add the tag in automatically. And we can even say like new seriousness to unassigned ticket, so we know it's a high priority or critical priority or whatever. New critical unassigned ticket, new high unassigned ticket, whatever is how it's going to read out. And then upon doing that, we can now grab the name of this, go back to this notification rule that we had created, and then we should be able to basically pick our custom template over here. The other thing I like to do, notice on this drop-down list, there's like no indicator of what's custom template and what isn't. So what I like to do is I actually like to name the custom template over here that describes that it is a custom template. So we're MSP advisors. I'm going to say MSPA : as the MSP name, or we can use custom or something like that to indicate that when we see it, we know that that's a custom template. If I refresh this, we can now see that it's MSPA. If I'm looking at it in the drop-down list, I can see, wrong drop-down, I can see that that is a custom template where the rest are built in. So it's just some tricks that I like to use because the interface isn't always the greatest at calling things out, and it helps keep things organized and easy to find. All right, we are about 35 minutes into the video, into the recording, and I'm gonna try to keep things maybe to an hour or under an hour. So I think we're ready for this to go through. We're just gonna create a couple more notification rules. We're gonna talk about the subscription of those notifications, maybe talk about the calendar integration, which I don't remember if we did or didn't do yet. So we'll look at that real quick. Any changes to the calendar integration that came up since the last video? If we have already set it up, there's some differences that have happened now. And then we'll stop this video, and the next video after this, we'll dive into ticketing for real, just to give you some expectation of what's going on. All right, so with that, we have our notification created. we don't want every single person to get this ticket. Only specific people should get this ticket. So as a manager or as a Halo user, I can go to my account, my profile settings, and I can say, you know what, I want to be notified of these new tickets. So I'm going to go down to notifications, and I'm going to check the box to indicate that I've now subscribed to those notification rules that we can see. Upon closing this out, we've got our notifications here. Notice that if I go to the agents tab right now, I will now be showing as a subscribed notification. And so therefore, I'm going to get this notification whenever a new ticket gets created that I'm not or nobody is assigned to at this point, regardless of whatever team it is, right? If I wanted to, as an admin, I can go and assign people to that notification. I could just pick another agent from this list and hit save, and they will all be included in that notification. Or if I wanted to, I can individually remove anyone from this list, basically. And upon doing that, it will update their preferences in their profile. So whereas previously you saw I had the notification enabled, now I no longer do because it's been removed. The other thing that we can do is we can assign the notification out through a role. So we talked a bit about roles before. If I wanted to say like this is a notification everyone in the company should have, I should have a base role that we had discussed way back in the beginning. This will every single person in Halo is going to have. And so now upon doing that, we can force every agent to basically get that role. And now they can no longer unsubscribe from that rule because it's basically forced inherited from a role that they've been granted or that they've been assigned to. So upon going here, you can see that I can no longer remove that from the list. In fact, I don't know. Oh, apparently I don't have the base role. So I can't show that to you. But if I were to go to an actual agent, let's go to teams and agents and go to agents. Who was this? Henrietta, let's say. If we were to go to Henrietta and then go to the preferences and notifications, you'll see that they are forced in the new ticket created rule and it's inherited and you can't uncheck it, right? They can't do that. So just something to keep in mind, like that's how that kind of works. We actually don't want to do this. Again, this is a new ticket created. Unless there's a manager role that we want the managers to have, there's probably going to be a specific agent that we want to have access to this role. So we're going to go ahead and assign just myself to this rule. And upon doing that, again, it's not inherited. So that means that I could technically go here, go to preferences, and then I can go to notifications and uncheck it if I want to. But I'm not going to do that right now because I actually do want to have this rule, okay? And that's basically it as far as notifications go. There are a couple notifications we try to insist are created that everyone should have access to. Number one is the mentions we talked about earlier, being able to mention a team or an agent on a ticket and CRM note. We turned that on earlier. And so basically the rule is saying in the event that a technician or a Halo agent, really not just a tech, a Halo agent is tagged, that means I'm using like the @ symbol at Mendy or something like that inside of a ticket. So if I go to a ticket here and do a private note, I can tag somebody on the ticket. And then upon doing that, when I save that rule, this notification is going to fire telling me, hey, you've been mentioned. And so the same rules that we just discussed apply. The out of the box notification here is okay. It's not great. One of the things we want to do, send an email. We're using send an email, which means what? We should be creating a custom email template at that point. So if we just go back to our custom template here, we're just going to clone this to be MSPA, agent mentioned, notification. And again, the key thing that we want to do is just notify them with an intention of what happened. You've been mentioned on the ticket, right? Here's the ticket details. Please note, you've been mentioned on a ticket. And because of that, maybe you want to change this up a little bit. The note you were mentioned in is, and then here we'll do $rich action 2, which will include the note of whatever happened. Please review and process it accordingly. Below are full details of the ticket. Right, and then because we've done that, we can maybe remove this entire row, delete row, right? Because we don't need that anymore. And so maybe we want to turn this into a link as well. So we can, turn this into a hyperlink essentially. And now I just made the whole table I made the ticket. Let's unlink this if I can. Unlink. Oh, come on. Well, in any case, I'm not gonna waste time on this. Either way, like I'm just gonna refresh this. Let's do this again. Edit this. You've been mentioned on a blah blah ticket. Boom. All right, we'll delete this row. We're just gonna do just this specific. I'm not gonna do that. I don't really care. Here's please note you've been mentioned on a ticket note. The note is dollar rejection 2. Please note, please review your process ticket accordingly. Full details of the ticket are below, and I am not going to include that link again. I don't know how it would happen there. And so that'll basically give you what we want. And so then we can save this, which will say, you've mentioned on a serious note. Right? So now we can go back to this notification and say we want to use that new template that doesn't show up here yet. So we'll come back and refresh this in a moment. We do want to say like we are sending an email. We do want it to pop up in the notification pane as well. We want to send a browser push notification. I would encourage you to consider the question over and over again, like, do I need this? Where do I need it? How is this helping me? Is it distracting me? Right? And so like for the new ticket created, I maybe don't want to have the browser push notification. But if it's something I'm being mentioned on, like something urgent, maybe I do need that to happen. Right? Maybe some things I only want to be via email so that I know that it happened and I can read it. I don't have to do anything with it. I just be aware of it. And then other things I do want to have in the Halo notification pane, especially if you've turned on the ability to use those notifications as like a to-do list of sorts, right? So just things to keep in mind as you're reviewing these settings. And then finally, of course, the custom color, we're going to turn this on to be like something that needs attention to grab what you need to do. Then we'll just come back here. We'll choose the correct email template. Now that I've saved it, it's basically refreshed the API list of email templates. And then upon doing that, the last and final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at who currently has this notification. Notice the role it's currently assigned to as administrator, which is kind of useless. You know, this is not a notification you want to prevent someone from seeing. In fact, this is something every single person should see no matter who they are. And so every role, like essentially the base role should cover everyone. I'm just going to leave administrator in there, but I'll put the base role in there. The base role should be all you need, and every single person inside the base role should be seeing, like every person in Halo. If you, I don't care who you are, if I mention you on a ticket, you should be notified that that happened, right? It doesn't matter if you're a tech, if you're an account manager, if you're a CEO, if someone's tagging you into a ticket, you should be notified that you've been mentioned so that you know what happened there. That same rule is going to apply for something else as well. Like if we look at here, the other rule that we like to create is request updated by user. And it's going to basically be the same exact thing, agent notification. In this case, it's going to be a little bit different. Again, same idea of show in Halo only or send an email. We're just going to show in Halo only at this time. We're not going to have an email template. Although if you were to do an email, I would encourage you creating a brand new email template again, setting it to explicitly call out that what happened, that the ticket was updated by user. We are going to pop a notification pane. We're going to send a browser push notification as well. And we're going to do a custom alert with a different color to indicate that it's a different type of notification so that our brains can easily process what we need to do with that. Same idea. This is a ticket that's explicitly for me. I'm assigned to the ticket. It's assigned to recipient. I'm the agent assigned to the ticket. And so I don't care who I am. If the ticket is assigned to me and it gets updated, I should know about it. I'm the owner. I'm accountable to that ticket. I need to know what's going on. And so if the ticket's been updated by user, assigned to the recipient, same exact idea. Every single person in the company should be assigned to this notification. And we'll just do the same two roles again because I'm not in the base role. And so now we can see all of these have happened. And that's basically it. That is the extent of the notifications. Anything else that you feel you need to happen, you can go ahead and build out those rules as well. There are a ton of them. Like I said, there's the SLA warning breaching. You know, there's a change ticket where it's starting in X hours. There's a deadline, ticket deadline. There's the deadline warning. There's a date field, I think, ticket date field in the past. And so this can be any custom field that's a date field you can utilize to say, hey, if this is coming up, or if it's overdue or whatever, start date and time is overdue by 1 hour, then we want to go ahead and notify whoever is assigned to this rule that happened, right? or whoever's assigned to the ticket that happened. So a lot of good things within these notifications. It's very powerful that you can use, and you want to go through and review those. The other thing that we want to look at up here, again, I said I'll spend a little bit on this, not too much. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, and again, the subtext is very helpful in this case. We want to notify a specific agent. We can just pick the agent, and in that situation, by doing that, none of these events should have. Let me just cancel this and start over. If I do like a specific agent, then these events shouldn't really matter who it's assigned to, right? Because it's going to be that specific agent every time. Um, we can say team leader notification. Again, same idea. So in this case, it actually did correctly remove those pluses. There's no reason to expand about assigned to recipient or not assigned to recipient. It's going to notify the team lead, regardless of who that is, based off the team the ticket belongs to. Account manager, same idea. It's based off the client. Primary agent is, again, primary agent is a client level field. It's going to be based off of that. Whoever gets that ticket is going to be getting that notification. The client also has a secondary agent as well. Department manager, same idea as team lead. Notify all agents. This will notify every active agent account inside of Halo. It doesn't matter what's going on. This is like a P1 emergency, like everything's going down or something like that. You can utilize that. It's going to notify literally everyone who's logged into Halo at this time. And then let's see, recipient related users of a ticket, right? So that's going to be the end user notification where it's going to notify the user or the client instead. End user notification, single user, or a specific end user notification of the ticket itself. Fixed email will allow you to specify an email address, right? And so then it's just a fixed notification at that point. Manager of the recipient of a ticket, so this will notify the manager of the end user. And then send to site contact. Again, if you have a site contact, it can go ahead and send to that site contact. You can filter by specific site contact if you want, so that it just notifies them about something going on. So super powerful. There's a lot of things that you can do here that you may want to do. I doubt you're doing all this right now, and I would again encourage you to keep it to what you have today to get up and running, and then build out these notifications based off of your infrastructure and based off your topology and your client layout and stuff like that as you grow into using Halo. If you do have some of the advanced notifications in play, I would say what I tell my clients, like especially coming off ConnectWise or another PSA, is to write up a spreadsheet of who needs to be notified in what situation and what do you want the notification to say. And then we basically build out those rules together based off of their essentially free-form spreadsheet. So they're not limited to like, I don't know what Halo can do. I don't know if we can do this. They're mostly just thinking about what they need to have happen, and then we build it out for them. So that's the best place to start, not to try to get overwhelmed with like what can or can't Halo do, and just figure out like what is it that you're currently doing today that you need to have happen, or what is it that's currently missing. Like if there's an easy thing that you don't do today, but it's a very big pain point, you can just add it in. Like it'd be great if I can get notified on every ticket that's breaching SLA or something like that. Right, that is it for notifications. And it basically completes the module for email configuration in our project plan. So the next thing that we talk about is the calendar integration, calendar setup. So let's go to calendars and appointments. Again, we're not going to go through too much here. There's a lot under general settings. A lot of things have changed over the last couple of months as new stuff comes through. There's a couple things that we'll go through really quickly. The first thing we want to do is exchange calendars, right? So this does look like we have had this set up in the past. So this is kind of working. Let's go through syncing appointments and let's see if we can, let's see if we can turn this on. So if we can import appointments or if it's currently broken. While that's attempting to load, let's go ahead and see if I can log into the demo instance that I have. Let's see, come on. So I have a different account. We want to use where are we? Copy username, log in with that. Yeah, so this is basically not valid anymore. So I'm just going to try to log into the 365 account so we can do this really quickly. It does look like I have 2FA set up somewhere. I just don't know where. Oh, here on this phone. Let's see. Approve sign in. Here's the code. Yes, that's me. All right. This looks right. And let's go to the identity platform. Sign in again. And I will bring this browser window over into the screen share that we currently have right next to that tab, right? And so this is the Rising Tide demo, dev.mspadvisor.com. We can see that we've got the application ID. So this is the application ID in the error message. I actually can't copy that, which is kind of annoying. But we can close this out and grab it from here. Here's the application ID. And we can just go, this tenant ID should match 2042. It does. And we can go to apps, applications, app registrations, all applications. We're just going to search for that good. And here we can see the Rising Tide training, Halo PSA, MSP Advisors training, and the certificate secret has expired, which makes a lot of sense because it's been quite a while since we've done this. We're going to delete that and create a new client secret. We're just do 6 months. Again, we don't really care for it to be super long. And I'm just going to copy that and just paste it into the new secret field, or the new secret into the secret field. At which point, by doing that, I should be able to go back here and say import appointments. And now it should be able to load those appointments from the calendar of the people that have it, although I don't actually know if we have any appointments to import at this point in time. I've got 15 minutes left before my next call, so I'm hoping that I can wrap this up in time. Let's see if Halo likes me or not. But one of the other things that we'll go through here, going back to the calendars while that's loading and see if that works. Under Exchange calendars, one of the things that they've changed is importing can now use webhooks. Although we do need to enable immutable IDs before that can happen. It'll essentially allow Microsoft to send a webhook to Halo upon a change happening to someone's calendar. And that way the calendar import will happen in real time. We still will use Halo Integrator for in the event a webhook can't be handled or fails to process or something like that. Halo Integrator will run behind the scenes and grab everything. But in the meantime, for the most part, most changes, deletions, creations to appointments will be fire off a webhook that'll come through. We don't have any appointments found, which is not surprising considering this is not a real calendar. So we'll go back and look at that later. For right now, what we want to do is we want to enable immutable IDs. In order to do that, we just need to add the user.read.all application permission to the app registration. So we go to API permissions, and we will just add a new permission of Microsoft Graph application, search for user read all, and check user read all and hit add permission. And the last thing we want to do is grant admin consent. And then upon doing that, we can see consent has been granted. We can now go back here and say use immutable IDs. This is going to go through and it will go back and update all previous appointments to use their immutable ID the next time Halo Integrator runs. We cannot change the method or type of the calendar integration upon doing this. So I would strongly recommend you think about this before you commit, and it is an irreversible change. Do you want to continue? Upon saying yes, it will confirm the permissions are set and we can use immutable IDs at that point. By doing that, we can now go to importing and say we want to use webhooks to process changes, and we can choose which agents we want to use webhooks for. In this case, I'm just going to turn off myself and hit save, and which will now create a subscription to Microsoft so that upon something happening to my calendar in that tenant, it will basically then allow me to, it'll just basically trigger Halo to bring that appointment into the Halo calendar. And so if I go back here and I create a quick appointment at 12 p.m. and hit save, we can see that this should fire off a webhook that'll be recorded almost immediately. And then if I go to my calendar in Halo, which is over here, I should see that same exact appointment right here as a test appointment to Halo from Exchange. You can see that's basically real time. If I go back and delete this appointment, what we should see happen again is the outbound request to Microsoft telling them it's been deleted. I don't actually know which one of these is it, but going back to the calendar, if I refresh this, it should be missing. Interesting. It looks like it failed to delete the appointment. So let's just try it again. I don't know if it's because the screen hadn't fully refreshed yet at this point, but let's try it. What's also interesting is that because it failed in the Exchange side, it also failed to delete it from Halo. And so now at this point, we go back to Outbound. There we go. We got the appointment deleted. And if I go back here, it is now gone. Right? So we've got real-time calendar syncing to Halo with inbound, outbound requests. It's the biggest change that happened since you last watched the video. Some other things that are going on, but for right now, like I said, I do have a call coming up, so let's just skip through that. One of the things we want to do is, again, appointments. So under general settings, we're just going to go through some of these things and set some of our recommended settings. Appointments release tickets from SLA hold about 10 minutes before. We can increase this if you want to about 15 minutes before. Just be aware that SLA will start counting the moment that happens, and so you don't want to potentially breach SLA because the ticket is now active or actionable upon that happening. We can set what status to set it to. So we can say like, hey, upcoming appointment or upcoming ticket can be a status that you set to so we can see it. You can set your calendar time slot size. And then this, generally speaking, you want this to be always. This will control the setting for new agents using the calendar integration. So generally speaking, you want this to always be set to always. And then when you are setting up the calendar integration for the first time, you'll get an option to enable for all agents, which you can do. And then you'll want to go through and turn it off for those agents that don't have a domain under that tenant. So like here, Patricia Jones, we can come here, go to preferences, and set the calendar notification to be never, because there's no integration for her. She doesn't have a mailbox on the tenant, as an example. But most of these you want it on for, and any new agent you want it on for, unless you specifically turn it off, right? So that's that. And then the next thing that we can do is you can color a project calendar just based on status color. Show date done on appointment task completion screen, default appointment completion time. No, we don't want that on. We want to show the appointment location field, select from a list of sites, ideally. And then allow editing of default agent status for appointments. We can set this to busy if you want. Default alert time for appointments. Ideally, you want this off. First day of the week, we can set this to Sunday or Monday. Ideally, if you're running your timesheets out of Halo and your payroll and stuff like that in the US, payroll runs from Monday to Sunday, so you want to start this on Monday, ideally. When opening agent calendar by the team, select all agents from that team to display their calendar by default. We probably want that off. Always show the appointment options to inform users and inform agent. Complete appointments, I like to set this to ask each time. Hide appointments actions from end user, I like to keep that hidden. Allow change ticket ID, I do like to set this because oftentimes, like sometimes the appointment needs to be moved from ticket to ticket. If you're creating an appointment on a ticket and the ticket is unassigned, you now assign that ticket to the agent of the appointment. I like turning that on as well. And I like excluding appointments not linked to ticket from the to-do pane, which is up here. So these appointments that are currently set here, if they're not linked to a ticket, they won't show up in that specific area, but they will still show up in your calendar. So I like to have that set just to keep that to-do list clean so that we know what we need to work on. And then this gets overridden by a status anyways, so we can just choose a generic scheduled at this point, and then you can override it on a specific action if we need to. And again, we'll talk more about that when we get into ticketing. When creating appointments to drag and drop, use the estimate time for the appointment length, right? Auto-completing appointments will add a time entry to the appointment ticket. We want to probably keep this off, probably. And then calendar sync, so don't have to create calendar entry on the action screen. I like turning this off. So this will basically allow you to, if you're putting time on a ticket, you can basically populate your calendar with that time that you've done. So it'll create like a backlogged or backdated appointment for that action that you did to kind of like fill up your calendar. I don't like having that on necessarily. So it's up to you if you want to use that or not, but I prefer to keep it off. Show agent work hours and times on override if set. I like setting that. And then this I like turning off now. I think we've gone through enough of this that we can turn it off. I think in a previous video I recommend turning it on. I like turning it off now at this point. And then I like turning this on. And then I do like to set the status for free appointments to be available so that it doesn't block up the agent status essentially. Um, all right, that's basically it. I've got 7 minutes left. I'm just going to go through agent statuses real quick. Like, what exactly does that mean? We talked about a couple of things here, agent status here, and then agent status over here. So what is the agent status used for? Under teams and agents, we can go to statuses, and we can basically identify in each of these statuses whether or not the agent is, well, busy, first of all, what color they show up as, and then what the behavior of their agent entity is like inside of Halo and how we're going to treat them. So can we chat an agent who's busy, or can we use that in intelligent routing or load balancing around robin, right? Or do we want to show a warning when we mention the agent? So if they're out of the office, for example, we can show a warning when we mention the agent, so that way we can say, hey, this person's out of the office. Like the person mentioning the agent now knows, like, okay, you may not get an answer right away. Right, they're out of the office, but you can still chat them. Right, we're not going to include them in intelligent routing or load balancing, so that way they don't get tickets because they're out of the office. If they're away, we can still include it in all those things because they'll be back, right? But we may not want to count them as online, or we can count them as online and they'll see it when they get back. Maybe we want to show a warning when we mention them, but not necessarily when they get assigned a ticket. But the key isn't like what our recommended settings here for this is. The key is you can do whatever the heck you want with these settings. And the idea is like controlling the agent status will then set the tone for ticket routing and assignment of tickets, mentioning them, notifications, and things like that. So the calendar is basically scheduling them for a specific task to do. And then during that appointment time, we can set or preset their agent status to make sure that the system behaves and treats them accordingly based off of what that appointment type is going to be. That basically sums up most of our calendar and appointment module in the implementation project. It also sums up the email templates and notifications module in the project implementation. Some of the things we covered in a previous video, so you'll have to go back and watch that from the Microsoft integration setup. I kind of just bundled all the Microsoft things together in that video. But those combined should cover that. And the next video will basically dive directly into ticketing from Halo. Hopefully this was helpful to you. And yeah, any questions, comments, leave below. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.